Hello and welcome to another episode of Movie of the Week. And today we're talking about Drive Away Dolls. And I'm finally getting the title right because all week I have been talking about it and thinking about it as Runaway Dolls. And I'm like, I don't know why I'm keep calling it that. But yeah, it's a movie that is certainly raunchy. It's got a lot of violent stuff going on in it. There's a couple of surprise appearances. I mean, I certainly was surprised by those appearances, but it's an Ethan Coen movie. It's his first officially solo directorial effort. Although, if you ask him, it was basically another co-directorial effort, but this time not with his brother Joel, instead with his wife and longtime editor Tricia Cooke. They sort of, they wrote the movie together, they produced the movie together, and yeah, if you ask Ethan Coen, he's gonna say, yeah, you know what, officially I'm credited as the director, but really it was a team effort. So, and I don't blame him. I think that's the right answer to give. So joining me today for the review itself is Angelina. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Happy Monday. I guess it's Monday. Craziness. The month, it's already March, you guys. Yeah. Let that stick in. Like it's already March. But yes, overall very good. Time is just flying really fast.
Yeah, and this movie it's been around for a little bit now, right?
Yeah.
Like Dune came out, and we talked about Dune. Drive Away Dolls has been around, I think, a week longer than Dune.
Mhm.
But it's a movie that, while it kind of fell, I mean, quite frankly, it fell flat on its face at the box office in its opening weekend with only like 2.4 odd million dollars on a budget of roughly $20 million. It doesn't look like it's gonna financially make back
Yeah.
what they put into it at Focus Features and Universal, but nonetheless, I mean, it's a movie that was certainly worth a watch at a time of the year where there's not a lot of movies out anyway. So, if you're gonna go check it out, I mean, there's options like, do you want to go see Wonka for the fifth time? Do you really want to go see Madam Web again? Or would you rather go watch Drive Away Dolls? Like, what's the worst that can happen, right? So, but like going in with that kind of an attitude, I mean, that would have been my attitude. I don't know, Angelina, what your expectations were, but you went and saw it, so I want to know, what you thought about it.
Yeah, I mean, so this movie is just sort of a hoot and a half. I didn't really walk in expecting anything much, and I think that that was the perfect way to approach it. I make the face that I do because and I think this is sort of Ethan Cohen's brand in a way, but he just sort of they throw all sorts of stuff at you and just you know it's kind of all over the place. We've got Pedro Pascal in the movie for like half a second. The opening scenes are so ridiculous. Like, spoiler, but Pedro Pascal essentially gets murdered like 5 minutes into the movie with a wine screw, and then you see his decapitated head later on in like a freeze dried situation. That's the extent of his cameo. We've got a cameo from Matt Damon, who is like the last person that I expected to be in this movie, and he just all of a sudden like pops in, and you're like, oh. Now, I will say that this movie is like a really refreshingly hilarious take on just LGBTQ raunchiness. Like, not enough. I feel like there just hasn't been enough cinema that sort of showcases lesbians in a way that is like hilarious and not crazily over sexualized. Like, generally, they try to like over sexualize lesbianism in this like really weird way, and they don't approach it like that at all. Like, it is truly it's giving like 1980s raunchy sex comedy. That's just what it is. So it's definitely fun. It's a lot of fun. I think the best way to just state it is like so many of the jokes kind of fall a little bit flat. Like it's like, oh, okay. But then so many of the jokes, like you have to just like guffaw in a way because it's like so ridiculous. And so many things in this movie are utterly ridiculous, but also hilarious. And yeah, would I go see it again? No. Was it like a good 90-minute laugh? Yeah, totally. I mean, this movie is under 90 minutes. How many movies can we say that about in the last, like,
I mean, there's
20
not many.
years? You know what I mean?
There's not many.
Like, every single movie I feel like I've had to go see is, like, 2 hours long, 2.5 hours long, almost 3 hours long. Like, it feels like cinema just keeps getting longer. This is setting itself up to be a bit of a cult classic. It is very funny. It is, I mean, yeah, it's just kinda there. There was a lot that sort of fell flat for me in the sense of, like, Marion, her accent is so ridiculously awful and thick in here, and it, like, kinda adds to the comedy sometimes, but it also takes away from the comedy at other times. She's, like, this very, masculine Texas woman, and she just, I don't know, the accent is, like, too much for me sometimes. I'm like, "Okay." Um, but it sorta adds to it, right? Like, I think there's so many facets of this movie that are so utterly ridiculous that you just have to roll with it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the word ridiculous definitely, I've seen that a lot in the reviews that I've read about this movie, and look, ultimately, having not seen the movie, where I would go to see, like, is it really worth the watch, is the usual suspects like Deadline, Hollywood Reporter, Variety. Let's see what they're saying, like the
Mhm.
big guns, and then I'll go to some of the other sites that I would usually check out for reviews. I have some favorite movie reviewers I check out, but then I go to Rotten Tomatoes and see what is the general consensus, and it looks like it's 66% is still positive. That still means 66% of the critics who reviewed this movie, in this case 186 critics, they looked at it as a positive. They said, you know what, it's still a pretty decent movie. The audiences, on the other hand, I know the number is not very high. There's
Yeah.
only like 100 plus verified reviews, and that means that basically 65 out of those 100 people or so did not like the movie. That's not a good sign, but that is, obviously reflected in the box office number too. I wanted to ask you, like, is this the kind? So you said that you wouldn't go see this movie again,
I
but
wouldn't
is
see it
this
twice. No, not in the
okay?
theater. Yeah,
So,
I mean,
I mean, to that end, like, when you say like this could become a cult classic, like, I mean, I'm assuming we both are on the same page when we're thinking this could become a cult classic when it hits post theatrical. Like, it could land on a
yeah,
streaming service and all of a
100%.
sudden blow up the charts down the road. Something like, like a show like Suits that did for Netflix, or like there's been other movies like that where, like, I think for Disney Plus it happens a lot where they may have a movie that doesn't
I
do
mean,
super
to
well in
me, it
theaters, but then when
gives
it lands on Disney Plus,
when
do
I
you
say
think
it
that's
gives, like,
possible?
1980s, to me, it gives, like,
Okay.
Heathers level ridiculous. You know what I mean? I think it's gonna find a home with some people. Or like, what was that movie? Without a Paddle? Do you remember the movie Without a Paddle? And it was so
Not
utterly ridiculous. You don't remember that?
no, no, I don't. I'm gonna have to
Okay, the
look it
movie
up
was
now.
hilarious, but it was so dumb, and it's like a very similar sort of thing. Like, is it hard for me to, like, think about the fact that they spent nearly $20 million on this movie? Yeah, it feels super bare bones, like, as you said, like, there's not a lot of script, they rely on a lot of dialogue, yes, Without a Paddle,
That's yeah, okay. It's
which
kinda
is
like one
actually
of those
hilarious because it's the
yeah,
exact opposite scoring of,
it's the total yeah,
yeah. So the
none the
audience
critics like.
loved this, but this movie was ridiculous. I can't believe you've never seen this movie.
Well, I mean, to me, this is giving vibes of, like, that movie, what was it called? Animal? Like, Rob Schneider was in?
I don't I don't know
I
what that
mean,
is.
okay, well, see, now I've got a movie
Oh
that
my
I'm
god, I
pitching
don't
that
know what
you
that
don't
is.
know about, so
Um,
I'm gonna have to look it up.
yeah, so but also, I was really sad that Pedro Pascal was only in this for a couple minutes, and I'm actually surprised at the level of cameos in this movie because we have, like, some really big names in this movie, and I don't know why. Like, are they just really good friends of Ethan Cohen? Like, they owed him, they lost a bet? Like, I don't know, you guys.
I
Like,
mean,
I
that's
literally was
probably it.
wondering.
I mean, Ethan Cohen is the kinda director, like, who has a lot of goodwill within the, actor within Hollywood in general. Like, it's he's the kind of person like here's the thing, most actors don't know how good or bad a movie's gonna be when they sign on. I mean, yeah, you look at the script, but especially if you're making a cameo, you're not necessarily gonna read the whole script. You don't really know where this is headed. Plus,
Yeah.
it's probably an easy payday, and you like working with the person, in this case, like Ethan Cohen, of course. So, uh, I wouldn't
So
imagine they jumped on this because they thought this was gonna be something that would be spectacular. They just thought this would be a fun day at the office, why not?
yeah. And
Um
and I was also thinking like, Margaret Qualley, who plays Marion, um, oh, not maybe not Marion, sorry, she plays Jamie. So Margaret Qualley, who is obviously the daughter of, oh my gosh, I like can't. I'm finding her name really quick. I'm sorry. So she's a nepo baby. So she's one of the OG nepo babies, but she was super famous for Made, that TV show that came out a couple years ago. So when this movie came out and I saw this movie and I started watching it, I was like, did she
Oh,
film this
Andy
before?
McDowell.
Yes,
Okay,
there we go. I like couldn't find
I
her
see the
name.
resemblance. I
Yes,
totally see the
she does. She looks a
resemblance.
lot like Andie MacDowell.
Yes.
Um, so when I saw her in Maid, and she's been in several other things since, I mean, she's such a brilliant actress that when I saw her in this movie, as I'm in the theater, I literally was thinking, you know how people will film movies like just before they make it, and then those movies come out like way after the fact, like once they finish editing and stuff. I almost wondered if they filmed this movie like years ago, because I can't imagine why she would take this character is so ridiculous to me. I mean, maybe she just wants to be like, I don't know, maybe she just wanted to play something a little bit more ridiculous, but her character is truly like it reminded me of remember when Chris Evans did that movie in the early 2000s, and I think it was called like, oh god, I'm really forgetting things, but it just it's just giving like, before I was famous, I did this ridiculous
Well, I
movie.
mean, I don't know if you're talking about the Fantastic Four movie, but I
No, no,
mean
no, no, no. Chris Evans did a comedy, and I think it was literally called like, God, I honestly don't even remember the name. It was like a B-rated movie. Chris Evans was in it, along with a host of other super famous people. It was absolutely ridiculous. It came out in the
um,
early 2000s prior to Fantastic Four.
prior to the Fantastic Four, early 2000s, okay. I mean, there's not that many options. There's Fierce People, uh, there which had a, Donald Sutherland, Diane Lane, Anton Yelkin, Kristen Stewart. There was Cellular, which was an action thriller. There was The Perfect Score. That was a teen comedy heist that had, of course, Chris Evans, Scarlett Johansson, Darius Miles, Leonardo Nam, Brian Greenberg. He also did a Not Another
Not
Teen
another
Movie.
teen movie. That's
That
the
might
name
be
of the
the
movie.
one. Kyler Lay, Chris Evans,
Yes.
Jamie Presley. Yep.
It is literally such a ridiculous movie that when I saw it, I was like, I'm so shocked that so many people were in this movie. And it sort of becomes like this, like you almost have to laugh about it because it's so bad. Like I feel like when I say cult movie, I kind of feel like this is going to be one of those.
Okay.
You know what
That's
I
fair,
mean?
that's fair. I mean, because look, the movie, of course, a cult movie, the definition of a cult movie is that it's got a cult following, as in it's
Yeah.
not a mainstream, everybody loved it when you usually have to fail before you become a cult classic. So, I guess if it's on that path, and
Yes.
it's almost meta because this movie is sort of an homage to those, like, B movies from back in the day, like you said, the '80s, like, Raunchy, filled with violence, sex, and all that stuff. And I guess, it's good counter programming for Dune. Like, if you don't wanna go see Dune Part 2 and you wanna go see this instead, and there's
Yeah.
certainly nothing that's gonna be as opposite to the experience that Dune Part 2 gives you, versus what this movie is. And I
And
mean,
this
yeah.
movie is so cut and dry, whereas
Mhm.
Dune, you have to think every second of every minute of every like. millisecond
Right,
that you're in that theater, you have to think and see and, like,
right.
assume and make all these leaps. This movie is super cut and paste if you just wanna go laugh in the movie
Exactly, just
theater.
turn your brain off. I
Yeah.
mean, it's not a Transformers turn your brain off kinda movie where you're just, like, there to, like, get visual noise thrown at you, but it's the kind of movie where you just turn your brain off, have a fun
Yeah,
time. That's all it is,
exactly.
which look, and ultimately, it looks like behind the scenes, the people who made this movie had a lot of fun. This is the first time I guess that, Ethan Coen has not really co-directed with, his brother Joel, and instead,
Is it
he's
Joelle
officially
or is
listed.
it Joel?
I think it might be Joel, I might be saying it wrong, and maybe we'll just go with, Joel because I trust you more than my judgment on that. But basically, this is the first time, like, Ethan's sort of gone out on his own and done this without his brother. They co-produced it, of course, but Tricia Cooke, who's been the longtime editor for the both of them and is, of course, Ethan's wife, she is also the producer. The two of them, the two partners, they co-wrote this movie. And if you ask Ethan, as I mentioned earlier in the review, he would, Ethan Cohen says, "Hey, you know what? It was a team effort. Like they basically co-directed it." So while officially this is, his first movie where he's the solo director, it may, might have just been a collaboration regardless. Which I think I found this picture earlier, so let me see if I can pull it up. It looks like there's a picture on set where, yeah, you see them together.
Mhm.
Like, it's and I'm sure, like, as two people who have been collaborating for a long time, obviously they're married, so like each other's, creative impulses and kind of like the way you think about things.
Mhm.
And the fact that Trisha is an editor probably played into the runtime of this movie. It's so, like, it just moves along. It's not like
Yeah,
gonna
that's
hold your
true.
breath for
Very
anything.
streamlined.
So, which again, like I said earlier, like, if this is meant to be counter programming to Dune Part 2, this is exactly about as opposite of a movie to Dune Part 2 as you can go check out. In
Yeah.
terms of the experience, the expectation, how long it is, like, and you can watch this movie on your cell phone versus Dune has to be seen on the biggest screen possible. And so this definitely has the makings of, like a cult classic, like you said. And I don't think this is the first time a Coen Brothers movie has been used by a studio to counter program a bigger blockbuster coming out on the other
Mhm.
side. And their movies tend to kind of lean in that direction. They're like these smaller pictures that have usually, these big name actors, and in this case, even though they're not in the starring roles, you do get some high profile cameos. So yeah, I mean, all around, if I were to ask you, like, out of 5 stars, what would you give it?
Like a 3.7?
Okay, all right, that's not
I was
bad. I
like,
mean,
it's not a 4. It's not like
right,
a 3. It's like
yeah,
a I
yeah,
got
like,
some laughs out of it. It was kind of funny. It was a decent way to spend my day. I wasn't sad that I spent the time there, so
see, that's
yeah.
good. That's a good sign, right? Like, it didn't feel like you wasted your time. Like,
Yeah.
I've been to see Madam Web, and I was kind of mad at myself after because of just the amount of cinema sins, as you might, if you're on YouTube, I'm sure they'll make a video about it one day. Like, the amount of sins that movie commits in terms of dubbing the voice of the lead villain,
Oh
the way
god,
the
I'm
third act plays
scared.
out.
I
There's like
haven't
100 different things.
seen it
So, like,
yet.
at least this movie's not the kind, like, you go in and even if you didn't like it,
Oh,
you probably had fun with it, which is
yeah.
the kinda experience that, if you don't wanna go watch Dune and you wanna just turn your brain off, like you said, this seems to be the way to do it. So yeah, I mean, this was our movie of the week. There will be hopefully, other movies come. I mean, there will be other movies coming out. Hopefully, more bigger, because I know we're getting closer and closer to the summer season now. Spring usually kind of just flies by. We of course have Dune out already, and then we're about to get the new Godzilla Kong movie where they just put out a trailer where Godzilla and Kong, they're running together, and all of a sudden Kong jumps on Godzilla's back, and then they cut away, and you're like, okay, like, I need to see that scene. Like, like, so I mean, they do that on purpose, obviously. So I'm
Yeah.
excited for what's to come in the next few weeks and months. Of course, we'll be back here to talk about all of those movies as they come out on Movie of the Week, and then hopefully we'll have the Also Curious show back up and running, I should say, in the coming weeks. And then, we'll be talking about other stuff like all the Marvel news that's out there. Of course, you can join us on the channel for DCU Daily, and we have lots of other content coming out in the near future. Angelina, as always, it's been great talking to you. So
Thank
we'll be
you.
back here on Movie of the Week very, very soon. And until then, go out there, watch a movie, then come back and tell us what you thought about it. I'm sure we'll be happy to pitch in and have a great conversation as always. Thanks, guys, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.